Hello, everybody. Welcome back once again. This is Season 3, Episode 8, the Trade Deadline Special on Empire State Hoops. I'm Adam Rothschild, and alongside me, that is Marquise Frias, once again here along with me as well. And today's episode of Empire State Hoops has been powered by Sport Pros USA. For more information, visit sportprosusa.com or call 877-HOOPS-NJ to make your dream court a reality today. So, it's been a crazy week, to say the least. We have a lot to catch up on here. I mean, just to dial into it, honestly.
Yeah.
For what we've seen, we're not just going to be talking about the Knicks today, because there have been some blockbuster trades leading up to today's NBA trade deadline that I never imagined would happen in the last 10 years. I mean, it is insane what has been happening behind the scenes. When you talk about GMs, for example, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, like Rob Pelinka and Nico Harrison with the Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks, as they made the blockbuster trade to send Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers to pair him with LeBron James, and to send Anthony Davis to the Dallas Mavericks to pair him with Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson. Now, we're going to break all of this down for you, and we're going to tell you how it went down, and of course, talk about both sides of this trade and what is the meaning of it. Because for both of these teams, now with the trade completed, it's a completely different landscape for the Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks. So, Marquise, when you heard about this trade, what are your first thoughts?
I mean, you talk about probably the biggest trade in sports history. There's no right way to call this trade. My immediate thoughts on was how, and I think that was the thoughts for everybody, just because the Mavericks GM was able to pull off the biggest trade in history under complete shadows. Nobody knew that Luka Doncic was or that the Mavs wanted to ship out Luka Doncic. Nobody knew that the Mavericks had these ideas that Luka Doncic was probably not going to be the face of their franchise in the next couple of years. So obviously, when this trade went down, it was a complete shocker. I want to say so much about it, but there's a lot to say about it. And I think the best way to put it is that this trade just easily changes the landscape of the NBA for the next 10 years, for the next 20 years. You can't really describe how big of a trade this is without writing a whole essay about it or something. It's absolutely mind-blowing, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to go from here with this trade, because a lot of people were putting question marks on the Lakers side first, because we just talked about the Lakers literally last episode with LeBron and everything, coming to the Garden. We'll get to that later on in the episode. But when you look at this from the Lakers perspective, now you have LeBron and Luka. LeBron has talked about playing with Luka Doncic forever, since he got drafted.
Yep.
And he said this guy is going to be the face of the NBA before we know it.
Yep.
And he's 25, and he's not even in his prime yet. And now he's playing with one of the greatest players of all time.
I mean, this trade, I look at it as not only is LeBron being paired up with Luka now, but I also see that as Lakers are preparing for when LeBron retires. And obviously, we don't have much time until the King leaves the big game of basketball for the rest of his life, which is such an unfortunate thing to say. So we have to cherish these moments while we can. But at the same time, the Lakers are going to get another key franchise player. They're going to get their face of the franchise player with Luka Doncic. And the cycle just continues. I mean, you go from Luka Doncic to LeBron James to Kobe Bryant, keep going back and back and back to really the start of the NBA. And here we are. The Lakers are just once again dominant in the trade, in the entire free agency market, or in the trade deadline. They once again get it done in order to get their key start players. So, I mean, you got to hand Rob Pelinka his flowers. I've heard a lot of rumors. I think one of the confirmed ones being that Rob Pelinka, the initial offer for Luka Doncic was to connect Anthony Davis and multiple first-round picks, and he was able to work it down to a much shorter deal with only Anthony Davis and Max Christie and one, I believe, first-round pick. So, I mean, give Rob Pelinka his flowers, but, I mean, man, the Lakers once again do it again and get their franchise player.
Well, guess what? The Lakers also got a center in this deal, too. You got to remember, they also got Markieff Morris and Maxi Kleber in this deal from the Mavericks, too. So that kind of alleviates them being able to go out for a center. It kind of just helped within this trade, really.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't want to shy on the fact that they got what's his name, Mark Williams from the Charlotte Hornets. But these are both good players off the bench for the Lakers. I think With their bench scoring, they can use some help, obviously, with Dalton Connect now being shipped out. Max Christie, he was a good bench piece scorer for them. So both of these players are going to provide the role that they need to off the bench. And then when we talk about the center role, I think that was the most glaring thing that the Lakers needed after this trade was made. Was that big center to fill in for Anthony Davis once he got shipped out, and now they have it. So I genuinely see the Lakers as a very competitive franchise in the West now, and I think that they have a true title shot now with this trade.
Yeah, absolutely. And this trade, of course, one of the more shocking ones that we have seen over the past several years, and this one has led up to what it was meant to be, you know, but this is a trade you normally see in the offseason, not really something that you see in the regular season. So, I mean, when you look into this perspective, it was really shocking to see this in the middle of the year with all the surprises and everything. But when you look behind the scenes too, Nico Harrison was a scout or he was in some position with the Lakers under Rob Pelinka.
Wow, I didn't
and he
know
was
that.
there when they got Kobe Bryant.
I didn't know that. Wow.
That's kind of when you talk about the relationships that these front office people keep together. This is one trade that when Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd were at the press and they were being interviewed by the media. I mean, how much more pressure can you handle? I mean, Jason Kidd, it seemed like he didn't even want to be there.
I can honestly, you can't blame them because of the backfire they're getting for this trade. I'm also a part of that train. I hate this trade for the Mavericks. You don't trade a top 3 player in the league at 25 years old. He just got you to the finals. You don't trade, like, I genuinely don't see how you trade a person like Luka Doncic just because of health and safety concerns or health and conditioning concerns. Like, the fact that was the reasoning pretty much behind to this trade being done for the Mavericks, I just can't see it. But I mean, the hate is enormous right now for the Mavericks. I've seen a bunch of videos. Some of the Mavericks fans honestly think that their lives are over with this trade. But I mean, you have brighter days now, I guess. This does make you, if you're a Mavericks fan, this does make you a title contender. Yeah, it's without your 25-year-old franchise player, but I think that with this trade, you know, Kyrie is also obviously a stud. Anthony Davis is obviously a stud. And then you have guys like P.J. Washington. They just traded for one of the Martin brothers, I believe Cody Martin, from the Sixers. So there you have another bench piece, or you have another scoring piece. You have P.J. Washington. You have all these guys that are able to get you to that title, which you guys have been chasing for since Dirk Nowitzki retired. So I'm not for this trade in the slightest, but the only way I see it being a plus for the Mavericks is if they get that Larry O'Brien trophy.
And the problem is they need to stack up wins now because where they're sitting in the Western Conference right now is not a good spot. But when you have Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, and Anthony Davis on one team,
I forgot Klay Thompson. I'm sorry, Klay. But
yeah, you just can't. You got to find ways to win games. But if they can't do that, it's not going to work well. I mean, they got to get ready for February 25th because they're going to have Luka coming back there to town.
Oh, I mean, I want to see just how angry Luka Doncic is after this trade. I think this is a shot to the gut for Luka because I 100% believe that he was going to stay there for the rest of his career. Luka Doncic is one of the most loyal players I've seen in a while, and he 100% deserved that supermax that he was supposed to get had he not been traded. But where's that game at actually on February 15th?
Oh, it's in Dallas.
Oh, it's in Dallas. Great. Perfect. So we're definitely going to see, I want to say a more angry Luka, and I definitely know that angry Luka is one of the most scariest and most dominant players I've ever seen in my life. So
I really think angry Luka is going to get to that Miami LeBron level. I really think so.
Most definitely. Yeah, I'm very excited to see that.
That will be interesting, it is to say the least. But that was not the only trade that happened throughout this week. That led up on February 1st, is that when that trade was very late at night. But there was another trade that you wanted to talk about as well.
Yeah.
And I was really confused by this trade. So to break it down real quick, Kyle Kuzma traded from the Washington Wizards to the Milwaukee Bucks for Chris Middleton, former All-Star of the Milwaukee Bucks, going to the Washington Wizards along with a draft pick. Now, this trade, here's the results. The Wizards are getting Chris Middleton, A.J. Johnson, and a 2028 first-round pick swap from the Bucks. The Bucks will be getting Kyle Kuzma, Patrick Baldwin Jr., and the New York Knicks are also involved in this trade as well, as they were added in recently, getting Jericho Sims, a 2025 second-round pick selection from the Wizards, and the Knicks are getting DeLon Wright and the draft rights to Hugo Besson and cash considerations.
Very interesting to me, this trade. I think the move wasn't needed, but on the Bucks part, I think that you guys they pretty much upgrade. I honestly think that they get an upgrade from Chris Middleton to Kyle Kuzma. And when I say that, I want you to think of Kyle Kuzma on the Lakers and not Kyle Kuzma on the Wizards. I feel like Kyle Kuzma was heavy reliant as a scorer on the Wizards. Meanwhile, on the Lakers with LeBron and AD, he was more of a 3-and-D type of player, or someone that if LeBron is not getting going or AD is not getting going, you're going to call on him to get a bucket. So I think that's what the type of role he's going to fit on with the Bucks. The only way I see this as an L for the Bucks is that AJ Johnson pick, or that AJ Johnson player. He was their first-round draft pick this year. I see a huge potential in him. I think that was more of a draft and stash player, and just for him to develop, kind of like Bacome Dadier for our Knicks. But AJ Johnson, I mean, he's gonna probably be one of the best bench pieces in the next 3 to 5 years, honestly, just with the right development. So I hope to see that. But then also you have the Knicks getting involved with this trade. Obviously with Jericho Sims, I think this opens up the front court for the bench, which being Ariel Hukporti. I really liked Hukporti, seeing him in the preseason and the summer league and the few minutes he's had so far in the regular season. So I'm definitely excited to see what I believe we call him the Big Huck instead of the Big Hulk, what he can do for us off the bench.
Yeah, that'll give him some more minutes in that perspective on the Knicks side. And when you look at it for Jericho Sims, this is where you get to learn something from a veteran center in Brook Lopez, who's been in the league for, I mean, he's been through everything, honestly. Championships. He played with the Brooklyn Nets. He played with the Lakers, played with the New Jersey Nets. He's been around this league, and he knows what it takes when it comes to being a big-time center, and I'm sure Jericho Sims can learn a lot from him for sure.
Not only Brook Lopez, but, I mean, Giannis Antetokounmpo is also right there, too, and who wouldn't want to learn as a young player, kind of playing the same position as Giannis Antetokounmpo as well. So, but that Brook Lopez, I think, is one of the more role model players in this league. You want to try to be like a Brook Lopez type of player in this league if you're not one of the stars. So I definitely I would definitely like to see how Jericho Sims fits in that role with the Bucks. But it's all in the business for the NBA. Jericho Sims, he'd served his time here, and it just didn't work out. But we always appreciate whenever our players do good, whether it was a good or a bad time for them. We always appreciate them coming to New York and giving us our services.
Of course, because he spent time in the dunk contest that one year, so it's not like he wasn't making contributions. He absolutely was. He represented the team All-Star Weekend, of course, and other stuff like that. And making big-time minutes. His slam dunks were fantastic, of course. But off he goes to the Bucks now, to another contending team in the Eastern Conference. But we're going to talk about one more trade. As much as there were so many trades, there's really only a few that we can go through, especially with us being able to cover the Knicks as well. So we're going to talk about one more trade here, and this one happened, I believe, yesterday.
Yeah.
So the Golden State Warriors make the trade for Jimmy Butler with the Miami Heat. So this trade also involved a lot of teams. Now, the main two pieces in this trade, of course, it's Jimmy Butler is the main piece. He's going to Golden State. He's going to team up with Steph Curry. But when you look at this perspective now, Andrew Wiggins is going to the Miami Heat. So long backstory behind this. So back when Andrew Wiggins was the number 1 overall pick by the Timberwolves in 2014, he was originally drafted by the Cavaliers, and he was traded to Minnesota for Kevin Love. So now they're both on the same team for the first time since that happened.
Yep, that's an interesting fact. I didn't really think about that at first, but that's a very interesting fact.
So when you look at this from both sides, as much as I do want to focus more on the Miami side here, but let's talk really quick about the Golden State side. Steph Curry wants to win a championship before his career is over. He's 36 years old right now. And with what they're doing, they still have Draymond Green intact, but I think when the Warriors lost Klay Thompson this offseason, they knew they had to fill the void. When they saw Jimmy Butler was frustrated in Miami, I mean, he kind of gave a hint that he kind of just didn't want to be there, and he knew his time had come to an end after everything he's tried to do there, and it just hasn't resulted in success. So I think when you look at this perspective, what do you think Golden State does the rest of the year? We're going to have them very soon, as the Knicks will play them in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, this Jimmy Butler trade is definitely one of the more interesting ones, I would say. I full on expected him to go to Phoenix when the news broke that he requested a trade and stuff. But I honestly, I'm not too sure how this works out for the Golden State Warriors. Jimmy Butler, he is an elite player. He is one of the best playoff performers we've seen in the past 10 years. Now, does that mean he's going to fit into every system in the NBA? No. The Golden State Warriors run a very specific system that I just don't see Jimmy Butler fitting into. We've seen the success with Andrew Wiggins, but we can easily say that Jimmy Butler and Andrew Wiggins aren't the same type of player. Jimmy Butler is way more ball dominant than Andrew Wiggins. He's also, I wouldn't say more. What's the correct word? He's not really in the paint as much as him as well. He's usually is around the arc, which means that Andrew Wiggins is going to get more boards than Jimmy Butler half the time. But, I mean, you talk about when Steph Curry came out and said he doesn't want the Warriors to make a trade that, backfires them in the next 10 years. I honestly think that this could be the trade that does that. It was almost not. It almost didn't happen because Jimmy Butler wasn't interested in signing that extension, and they were able to manage to get him to sign an extension. I believe it was 2 years for $121 million, which is honestly $60 million a year for Jimmy Butler is an astonishing amount. But I think it just really depends on how the Lakers or how Curry and Jimmy Butler play with each other for the next 2 years, and if Curry wants to retire after those 2 years or Jimmy wants to leave after those 2 years, it's really all up to that to see if this trade was successful or not for the Golden State Warriors.
And Steve Kerr's going to have to bring something into this as well to just get him familiar with the system and what they do. Because Golden State, of course, we know how they work. They're known for running that small ball, fast-paced offense, shoot lights out from three.
Yep.
And they can attack on the inside too, which is something Jimmy Butler is very good at, obviously. But we're going to see how that goes, of course, with that trade. But coming up after the break, we're going to break down one more trade for you guys after the break, and then we will cover the New York Knicks and what the latest is with the team leading into All-Star Weekend, which is right around the corner with the trade deadline ending today. So we'll be right back after the break here on Season 3, Episode 8 of Empire State Hoops. We'll be right back.
Hey there, basketball fans. Are you ready to take your love for the game to a whole new level? Well, listen up. We've got something that will make your hoop dreams come true. Introducing Sport Pros USA, the ultimate destination for all your backyard sport court needs. Whether you're a diehard Knicks fan or just looking for some slam dunk fun with your family, Sport Pros USA has got you covered. Picture this, it's a sunny afternoon in New York, and you step out onto your very own custom-built backyard basketball court. The court where legends are born and memories are made. A court where you can unleash your inner baller and shoot hoops like your favorite Knicks players. But it's not just about basketball, it's about family, friends, and fun. Whether you're hosting a game of horse with your buddies or teaching your kids how to dribble and shoot, Sport Pros USA brings the magic of the game right to your doorstep. Our courts are more than just a place to play. They're a place to connect, bond, and create unforgettable moments. And with Sport Pros USA, you can have it all, right in your own backyard. We're not just building courts, we're building dreams. Dreams of buzzer beaters, comebacks, and endless laughter. So why wait? Give us a call at 877-HOOPS-NJ or visit sportprosusa.com today to start designing your very own backyard basketball court. Remember, at Sport Pros USA, we believe that every home deserves a court, and every family deserves the joy of playing together. So don't just watch the game, be a part of it.
And we are back here once again, Season 3, Episode 8 of Empire State Hoops. I'm Adam Rothschild, and alongside me, that is Marquise Frias here on the Trade Deadline Special. And today, we have talked about a lot of trades so far, and we're going to cover one more trade before we preview and recap some of the games coming up for the New York Knicks leading into All-Star Weekend. So, this last trade we're going to talk about is probably the one that was more under the radar. It was I believe it was a 3 or 4 team deal between
It was a 3-team deal.
Three-team deal between the Sacramento Kings, Chicago Bulls, and the San Antonio Spurs. So, the main key factors in this trade, Zach LaVine going to Sacramento, and he's playing once again with DeMar DeRozan. De'Aaron Fox is going from Sacramento to the Spurs to team up with Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama. So, this intrigues me a lot. Sacramento, I don't know what their mindset was with this trade. I mean, yeah, reuniting Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan is good to keep their connection together, I guess, from when they were in Chicago.
Yeah.
But for the Spurs, I absolutely love this trade because the last consistent point guard that I think this Spurs team had was Tony Parker.
Yeah.
And when you get a guy of De'Aaron Fox's caliber, who is still young in age, he's in the middle of his prime right now, has that skill to be that elite point guard, I think that brings so much to this team, especially with having Victor Wembanyama in his second year.
I think the Spurs absolutely won this trade by a landslide. I mean, They did give up a few picks for this trade to happen, but at the same time, you got an elite player like De'Aaron Fox to match up with your young star Victor Wembanyama. The price. You can just leave a blank check on it, honestly. They also, what I wanted to mention, they didn't trade any of their 4 young core guys that I thought they would trade in, and those being Stephon Castle, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell. I'm trying to name them off the top of my head, and there was one more that I think I'm forgetting. I believe it was Jeremy Sohan. Right, Jeremy Sohan. So they managed to keep all 4 guys in this trade, and they only really trade, I believe it was Trey Jones and Zach Collins, who I wouldn't say they're bad players, but they're a little more flexible when it comes down to trying to trade for a big player like De'Aaron Fox. So I absolutely love this trade for the San Antonio Spurs. I think they also get Chris Paul to match up with De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox can learn from one of the greatest point guards of all time, and then Stephon Castle is still being able to learn from Chris Paul as well. So it's just a huge for those guys' development, and I think the Spurs they nailed it on the nail here with this one.
It's a huge benefit, especially when you're playing under a Hall of Fame head coach who seems like he doesn't even want to retire at this point for how long he's been coaching the Spurs since 1996. So I mean, you got to give him credit as well for him still being able to coach at the age that he's coaching at. Of course, Greg Popovich, one of the greatest coaches of all time, and now he's got a good team to work around with once again as the Spurs are trying to make their way out of this rebuild. And, despite giving up the picks, I mean, they did have Victor Wembanyama as the number 1 pick. So there's no reason not to give up those picks in that perspective.
I would say that they won't need their picks for long because their future is pretty bright right now in San Antonio. And, I mean, the trade pretty much went as a success. They had a game last night. They beat the Hawks 126-125. Trae Young almost came back again, but San Antonio was able to hold him off. And I believe De'Aaron Fox actually got the assist kind of to Victor Wembanyama, and he got fouled, and then he was able to get those game-winning free throws. So, I mean, De'Aaron Fox is already showing to be a great spot for the San Antonio Spurs right now.
Absolutely, and it's been a fun season for them so far. It's been up and down, but they've figured it out. Of course, the Knicks played them back on Christmas Day. Of course, that was a fun game to watch. That was pre-trade deadline, of course. But now we're going to finally get into our games of the week that we saw and our games of the week that are coming up before the All-Star break. We got 3 to look at, 3 to preview. So we're going to talk first about the Lakers. That was, of course, February 1st, last Saturday. Knicks play the Lakers, fall short, back and forth game most of the way, but they couldn't stop LeBron James.
I mean, LeBron James was really the answer to why this Lakers team was able to do it. He dropped 33, 11, and 12. Obviously, LeBron was going to have a good performance in the Garden. If you're a star player, you're going to have a good performance in the Garden. If you don't, you're just not a star player. So I think it was definitely LeBron's help that propelled the Lakers to this win, but also the Knicks stars were shut down. Brunson only dropped 17, 2, and 7. Cat only had 11, 6, and 3. This is going to be one of those games that teams that the Knicks hopefully match up in the playoffs. They're going to look back at and they're going to see, how did the Lakers do this, and how did they shut down both stars on a very good team? So I think it was just a matter of at least one of the stars had to get going, but none of them happened, and that's really why the Lakers took this one.
Yeah, and when you can't stop the king, that's the result, and that's what happens with this game. But despite the loss, of course, big game, national TV, and the Knicks just couldn't do that. They give it till Monday. They go up against the Rockets. This was a tight game all the way through, and I mean, when you look at the perspective of what the Knicks had to do in this game, they win at 124-118. Jalen Brunson with a 42-point masterpiece hit the game-setting 3 right in the end of the fourth quarter, right in the final seconds.
Shades of Carmelo Anthony. I've been seeing a whole bunch of edits with that Carmelo Anthony and Jalen Brunson shot. That was just an incredible moment for real. Pretty
much passing the torch from Carmelo to Jalen Brunson now. It's been a great story, of course. But as for the rest of this game, Mikal Bridges dropped 22. Karl-Anthony Towns also with 22, 9 rebounds. And, of course, Brunson took over in the fourth quarter to help propel the Knicks over the Rockets in a fantastic bounce-back win.
I mean, you entering this game, it was back and forth. It was just two heavyweight teams just going at it with each other. You don't expect nothing less. And entering the fourth quarter of this game, the Rockets were 28-4 when leading going into the fourth. And the Knicks were 0-8 when trailing heading into the fourth at home. So the Knicks pretty much beat the odds with this win. I was completely emphatic watching this game. It was just big play after big play for the Knicks, and then that Brunson 3 just pretty much sealed the deal. So you love to see the Knicks being able to bounce back after that tough Lakers loss at home, being able to be one of the top teams in the West, and just overall a great win for the Knicks.
Yeah, and especially beating a surprising team. That was the main factor going into this, to see if they would be able to do that, and it turns out they were. So the Knicks get the bounce-back win against the Houston Rockets, and that leads into the back-to-back to head up to Toronto to take on the young Raptors. And in this game, another spectacular game for Jalen Brunson with 28 points. Karl-Anthony Towns with 27 points and 20 rebounds. That's his fourth 20-20 game of the season. And Precious Achiuwa with 17 points and 8 rebounds off the bench. So Achiuwa with the big production. The Knicks hold on in a tight game in Toronto and get a much-needed back-to-back wins.
And you really said it on right there. That's what I wanted to focus on with at least this game. Precious Achiuwa showed up, and he's showing now that he's more than capable of filling the void with no OG Anunoby. With that OG Anunoby injury, I would like to see him be out for the rest of the break until the end of the break. Because from this Knicks health staff, the Knicks health staff isn't very accurate when it comes out to really the timeline of injuries. You saw that last year with Julius Randle, where he thought he would be back before the playoffs, and he was just turned out to be out for the rest of the season. So I want to just see OG rest up. We're capable of holding on without him. This one big game, though, I mean, we have a pretty good big game next, and I know you're going to preview it, but I would love to see him out there, but I think Precious will hold it down, hopefully, for us in that one.
And holding it down against the defending NBA champion Boston Celtics. A week later, another national TV game on ABC at the Garden on Saturday night. Boy, this is going to be a fun one against the Celtics. I mean, the Knicks have been hoping to win this year against Boston, and on their home floor, it's right in front of them.
I think that this is really the game for the Knicks to show that we are true contenders in the East. A lot of people have been so far holding that embarrassing that embarrassing season opener to the Celtics, where I think we lost by around 30 in that game. I just want to see the Knicks be competitive. I'm fine with the loss here, but as long as we're competitive and we're able to show that we can really stay with the defending champs, one of the best teams in the NBA right now, who has been on a slow streak so far. I think as long as we're competitive, we could really make some noise in the East with that. And I'm just hoping that the guys can get it done for this one.
Yeah, and I think the real thing is you put probably Mikal Bridges on Jason Tatum with OG being out, of course. I think that's the best way to go about this. And then the center position it's going to be Karl-Anthony Towns against Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, he's going to get some boos out there in the crowd. But
I mean, Kristaps Porzingis, I don't think has ever gotten a warm welcome from the Knicks crowd after that trade that happened, I believe, in 2019. So I definitely expect some boos, and I definitely expect Cat to be able to show him that, yeah, this is my position now. This is what I do now. So I'm just hoping. I'm going to say that a lot with this game. I'm hoping that the Knicks can pull this one out.
And we'll sure find out enough in several days if they are able to hold on and beat the Boston Celtics. But after that, they got another opponent coming up on the schedule, a very familiar one, the Indiana Pacers, who are right behind them as the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. Right now, the season series is tied at 1. Knicks are looking to win it in this third and final matchup. This is the last time these two teams will be seeing each other this year. So we'll see who comes out on top. And, of course, the story is Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, and I mean, Tyrese Halliburton has been off his game for this season. It's probably a career low season for him since rookie year, I believe. But I think this whole preview that we have so far with the Knicks, this is all get-back games right now for the Knicks. That I believe we lost the last game against the Pacers, and we obviously lost to them in the second round of last year's playoffs with a lot of guys being down. So I think as of right now, the Knicks just need to focus one game at a time, and when we reach that Pacers game, we're really going to show them that we're here to stay, and that last year's playoff was a huge fluke against us. So I'm very excited to see how that one goes as well.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup, of course, and we'll see how that one goes, of course, as the Knicks will look to take on the Pacers after the Boston Celtics. And their final game before the All-Star break later next week, I believe this is next Thursday, I believe is when this game is, against the Atlanta Hawks, who they did play recently at the Garden, I believe. So from what we're seeing in this game, is Trae Young getting slept on? I mean, this guy's averaging over 20 points per game. He's not even an all-star this year. And, of course, we know he's been doing that in past years. And this really should be a win against a team that's had an up-and-down season that really hasn't found a good spot to sit in the Eastern Conference just because of their young core. And, I mean, there was a trade they just did today.
They did, I believe, multiple trades, and I believe one of them was for to trade away DeAndre Hunter for Karis LeVert.
Yes.
DeAndre Hunter going to the Cavaliers. That was a huge shocker to me. I thought that DeAndre Hunter was going to be a good piece for them to build around off the bench at least, and maybe plug in as a starter here and there, but that was totally unexpected. But for the game, at least, it's the Hawks. Like, we want to beat the Hawks anytime, especially in the Garden. I'm expecting more Boo Birds for Trae Young more than Kristaps Porzingis. Obviously, the battle between two of the best point guards in the East, Jalen Brunson and Trae Young. So I'm looking forward to this one as well. Jalen Brunson, he has to show out again in order for the Knicks to win this one. He didn't show out the past couple of times against the Hawks, and which led to some losses. But I think as long as Jalen Brunson, our captain, shows up against the Hawks, we'll be able to take this one for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that'll be an interesting game to watch as well. And another thing you just before we close things out, I want to bring up that point about the trade you said before. Getting DeAndre Hunter, that just set up the Cavaliers. With them being the number 1 seed, I mean, come on now.
I think that was a foolish move by the Hawks to trade Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter.
Wow, here we go. DeAndre Hunter to one of the best teams in the East. I wonder how that trade went down. I wonder who offered who first. I really hope it wasn't the Hawks, but I think with DeAndre Hunter being on the Cavs now, it's definitely a scary sight. I think definitely DeAndre Hunter is a better player than Karis LeVert off the bench for them. So it's just all about how the East really cooperates around the Cavs being one of the best teams now and adding a really good player. It's going to be definitely interesting to see how with this entire trade deadline of how the teams shape out in the next couple of months before we hit the playoffs.
And that too, with the season unfolding, we're at the halfway point now. It's that point in the year, we're like 50, like 40, 50 games in, and it's, we're near that point now. We got a couple months to go till the postseason, of course, and we'll see what happens down the stretch post All-Star break with the New York Knicks, and we're going to find that out and see how this next week goes before the All-Star break, and we'll see what happens. This trade deadline has been insane, and this episode of Empire State Hoops has been powered by Sport Pros USA. For more information, visit sportprosusa.com or call 877-HOOPS-NJ to make your dream court a reality today. So, the trade deadline special. I mean, this was one of the craziest trade deadlines,
if not the craziest,
that we've gone through. And I mean, I have no words. It's insane what this trade deadline has been, and it's going to be a crazy ending to this season. I mean, the NBA champion, I don't know who it's going to be. Just because of these trades, I don't know. It's insane right now. I mean, if Matt Vargo was on this podcast and I asked him right now what it would be, he would say the same thing. I have no clue. He would probably say the Lakers. Knowing him and how he loves LeBron, he would say the Lakers.
I would honestly say the Lakers too if it's not for the team on my chest right now. So let's go New York. But I mean, it's right now wide open after this trade deadline. So this is going to be one of the more exciting finishes to this season for sure.
And we'll find out what happens, of course, for the rest of this season. But we'll tune in next week as we'll get ready for the All-Star break. But from here on Empire State Hoops, I'm Adam Rothschild. That's Marquise Frias. And we'll see you all next week. Have a great weekend.